can't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Eevee and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Ernie, Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell so you stay notified, and also hit the like button because it helps somehow. So today's video, we're going to be talking about NYX, written by Jackson Lanzig and Colin Kelly, with art by Francesco Mortarino, color by Raul Angelo, and letters by Joe Sabino. There's quite a few of the new From the Ashes books that I was really curious about. Like, I was more interested in just where I thought they were gonna go with the narrative. I felt like NYX was one of those books that, while by and large I'm not the hugest fan of the series as a whole, the past iterations of NYX, while I don't think they were bad, they weren't directed at me specifically. So it was one of those where I was kind of like, okay, this is cool, but it just kind of is what it is. It wasn't something that like I just went out of my way to go read or would go back and reread. I mean, I have recently, more like for research purposes, but it was just never my thing per se. This one, I think, might stand a chance of getting that, and that's largely because of the cast of characters that have been brought together. This is a story that largely, at least in this first issue, stars Ms. Marvel, Kamala Khan, and also Sophie Cuckoo, one of the Stepford Cuckoos, who are, if you're not familiar, they are the daughters of Emma Frost. And this book is kind of playing off some things that we have seen, for the most part, play out in stuff like the Ms. Marvel New Mutants side of things. But what I like about this is that you have two characters who are meeting each other for what is effectively the first time on any meaningful level. Kamala Khan meeting Sophie, Sophie meeting Kamala, and both of these characters kind of getting to know one another. And that's kind of the charm of this first issue. And it's a pretty interesting little dynamic they build up, because when it comes to the Cuckoos, I don't really have any particular opinion of any of them. They're never really been my favorite characters by any stretch of the imagination. But if I had to say, they pick the right one to put at the forefront of this. Some of the dynamic that we had between Kamala Khan and Emma Frost during Jerry Duggan's X-Men, you see a little bit more of that here with Kamala Khan and Sophie, and how Sophie doesn't have any inhibition and she's just willing to throw herself into anything, and she just doesn't seem to take no for an answer in a lot of cases. And Kamala is just kind of like Kamala Khan. She's a more down-to-earth girl. She's, I don't want to say like, you know, the quotey fingers good kid or anything like that. She's not a hellraiser by any stretch of the imagination, outside of, you know, her superheroing, or as she refers to in this issue, her Ms. Marveling. The other characters we're introduced to in this are Anole, who I think we got the lion's share of Anole in the Vita Ayala New Mutant series during the KRAKOAN era. If you're not familiar with who Anole is, he's not exactly a new character. He's been around for quite some time, but I would forgive you if you didn't know who he was. But his genetic mutation is, if his name didn't give it away, he is basically a humanoid lizard in all that entails. That was a pun, and yeah, we're just gonna roll with it. We also have the character David Elaine, also known as Prodigy. And for those unfamiliar, Prodigy's mutant power is that he can know everything that you know just by being in proximity of you. Then we also have Laura Kinney, aka Wolverine, who, if the name didn't give it away, she has the same powers as Wolverine. All in all, this story, I felt, did a really good job of reintroducing us to a lot of these characters, showing us their new situations, their new status quos. It pretty much did everything I felt it needed to do. Speaking of things that needed to be done, it's time to talk about today's sponsor. Now, I always say that the winner between who has the best comics, Marvel or DC, is oftentimes indie comics. Well, today's sponsor believes the same thing. Global Comics is a digital comics platform where you can get the very best of indie publishers and indie creators. And I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking like, oh, you mean like some Joe Blow nobody that has the hottest comic that no one's ever read before? Yeah, that too, but they also have the very best of Image Comics, Vault Comics, Boom Studios. You can find titles like some of my favorite comics out of the Energon universe from Image and Skybound, like Transformers, G.I. Joe, Scarlet, Destro, Cobra Commander, and Duke. You can also find other comics like Kelly Thompson's The Cull, Chip Zdarsky's public domain and its spin-off, The Domain, as well as his crime series, New Burn. You'll also find things like Jonathan Hickman's East of West. You're a Boom Studios head like myself, you'll find comics like Once and Future. You'll also find one of my favorite titles of recent memory, Something is Killing the Children. Follow your favorite publishers, follow your favorite creators, and keep up with the comics you care about. And none of this having to wait 4, 5, 6 months to get your favorite comics as they come out. No, you can literally get the best that Image, Boom, AWA, Dynamite Comics, you can literally get their comics the day they come out on this platform. And you can not only get single issues, you can also get trades, you can also get graphic novels, you can literally get the whole shebang at Global Comics. And I haven't even said the best part. Global Comics, because as I said, they're sponsoring this video today, they're also want to give you a special opportunity by offering each and every one of you who clicks my special link and uses my promo code, all of it listed in the description as well as a pinned comment below. You do that and you will get 33% off of your 1-year subscription to Global Comics, unlocking domain expansion levels of greatness in terms of allowing you to read unlimited comics, manga, and graphic novels to your heart's content. Don't walk, run to get your Global Comics 1-year subscription. Do that and you will finally be able to check out all those comics you've heard me and Carter rave about on this channel every week. But with that said, let's get back to the video. Okay, now that that's out of the way, the thing that this book I felt did a really good job of, especially, is how it set up the current status quo. I feel like this comic did a better job of any of the 3X comics that have been released thus far, that being Jed MacKay's Adjectiveless X-Men, as well as Stephanie Phillips' Phoenix series. Both of those books did a good job of setting up the status quo for those books, but I feel like this one did a better job of setting up the status quo for mutant kind overall. And this is something I've been talking about for a long time, ever since the end of the KRAKOAN age was, talked about and, mused and hinted at. Even before some of the news came out, one of the key things I said is that the most interesting thing you could do with a post-Krakoa X-Men era is to showcase a world where the mutants have to reintegrate into society, and society, they were already mad at them for going off and getting their own island, having mutant resurrection and, life-saving medicines and whatnot. Yeah, of course, they were already angry about that. So how are they going to respond when mutants have to come back? Are they going to welcome them with open arms? Or are they going to act a whole goddamn fool? And that's exactly what we get. Mutants are treated worse, objectively worse right now. Minus, giant walking, talking robots coming after them. But I liked how this was set up when Kamala and Sophie go to a bar. They sneak into a bar and people approach them, and they technically are approaching a Null first because he's the only one amongst them who is visibly a mutant. They're asking him about his status as a mutant and accusing him of all these different random terrorist attacks. It's a group who refer to themselves as truth seekers, and I'm gonna go ahead and tell you right now, one of the things I have kind of started to notice about the From the Ashes era, and technically this was the thing with the KRAKOAN era too, because there was a lot of parody between the racist and phobic and fascist regimes that were around at the time that the House of X was going on in IRL. But here it's kind of more of the same. The truth seekers are not much different than the red pill community that we have on social media. Like, these guys, basically what they do is they go out of their way to try and provoke mutants into acting out and then framing the recording, because they're live streaming and recording all of these instances. They're framing them as though the mutants are the ones who are the aggressors, when they are the ones who in fact are inciting the violence, or rather the reaction that mutants give. And they have been framing mutants all over town, all across New York, and just for various and sundry things that humans are doing, but accusing mutants of it just the same. And I'm not gonna sit here and try and say like, oh, I know exactly where this is going as far as like the truth seekers part of it goes. I feel like this is gonna be one of those things where, yes, there is something deeper going on there. There's probably an actual organization that's tied to this, or whatever. I feel their effects are definitely gonna be far-reaching, because something that comes up this issue is whether or not Kamala Khan can tell her family that she is a mutant now. And for those who have not been keeping up, I don't want to rehash any of it here, but I'll just say, if you are not familiar, go check out this video up here and you'll get more caught up on what what the hell has been going on with Kamala Khan as of late, but just know that since her death and resurrection as a mutant, her parents don't know that she's a mutant. They don't even know she's Miss Marvel or even an Inhuman anymore. But the point is, she can't tell her family because she's afraid of how they're gonna respond. And she gets an interaction with her brother Amir in this issue that basically kind of sets the table to let you know that right now is probably not the best time. But I do feel that maybe, and I hope this is, you know, potentially where this goes, maybe if and when Kamala does decide to tell her parents, her family, that she is a mutant, I'm hoping that their response will not necessarily be what Amir was kind of, you know, hinting towards. Like, I'm hoping that maybe it might soften it a little bit and, you know, kind of make it more closer to home for her family so that maybe they won't express that kind of slick anti-mutant sentiment. I like some of the stuff that they're doing with when Kamala saves a bunch of people as Miss Marvel, and there's people who come running up to her, and at first you think, oh, these people are fans, they love her, they want to express their gratitude, you know, to her. And what they're doing is they're basically recording a message of her asking her to tell other mutants how to act around humans, like basically trying to say, see, here's one of the good ones. You tell your people how they need to get in line, how they need to straighten out. And it's like, oh my God, it's such an eye-opening moment for Kamala. The stuff going on with Wolverine is okay. I mean, it's a little head scratchy because I feel like Laura should know who Miss Marvel is and know this isn't her first rodeo at being a hero. But apparently she seems to be a privy to some information that maybe Kamala doesn't have yet. That part was a little bit of a head scratcher to me, but I feel like Laura's kind of going back into her OG NYX bag. And I just mean just in the sense of going more darker and edgier. So I don't know. This is going to be an interesting dynamic between these two characters, so we're just gonna have to kind of play the waiting game on that one. I do like what's going on with Prodigy, the fact that he is now operating as a teacher at ESU and teaching about KRAKOAN history, and the whole part where Sophie is upset that he is talking about Krakoa as if it's some bygone era, and as well as things, I kind of get where both characters are coming from. I don't even get the impression he's trying to talk about like it's a bygone era. I feel like he's actually putting the utmost reverence and respect on it, but yeah, it was an interesting little scene to kind of play around in, so I thought it was cool, and it also kind of lets you know where everyone is standing. I have heard the criticisms that people said, oh, the conversation is too one-sided and that it wasn't a good look for Sophie, a whole white woman, to be talking down to a black man as though he doesn't understand what a struggle is or anything of that nature. I get where people are coming from, but as a reader, I think it's perfectly fine and more than reasonable to look at a piece of storytelling in a vacuum and think, this is not okay or this is bad. However, I will say from a writing perspective, like looking at it with a writer's eye, I would say I've seen scenes like this in multiple comics over my life, and not just specifically to, you know, conversations between black and white characters, but I will definitely say this is one of those conversations that when I read it, while yes, I kind of thought the same things, I almost immediately after started thinking, what would a conversation like this be written like if I was writing it? And I realized this is going to be one of those deals where a conversation is had in one issue where one character is going to say something very declarative about another character, and then maybe an issue or two, maybe even 3 or 4 issues later, that conversation is going to be revisited and some statements are going to be walked back. That's basically how I took this. This is conversation writing 101. Like, you're not gonna get the whole conversation in one issue. That's just not how writing works. I get why people are upset about it, but I'll be honest, I'm not one of them. All that aside, we also have other villains that are introduced here and their effects on the narrative going forward. While this isn't 3K proper, the villainous group that was hinted at in the Jed MacKay X-Men #1 issue, no, this is something different. While we do see a member of 3K, that being the KRAKOAN, the character who I said was very likely Hellion, well, turns out that is exactly the case. Former Hellion himself, Empath, basically says, you were such a suck up to Emma Frost that you literally picked a name, a mutant name, that was literally her favorite word. There's also the rest of the Stepford Cuckoos. Sophie isn't in on this, but the rest of the Cuckoos, the other 4, they definitely are. I'm gonna admit here that this part I was not expecting. I was not expecting to see Empath and the rest of the Cuckoos, like at least not in this capacity. I expected to see the Cuckoos, but not Empath. I'm actually really happy to see Empath here because Empath was one of the, I don't want to say the biggest missed opportunities, but I will definitely say it was a very I think, very poor missed opportunity in terms of storytelling, because they were really going somewhere with Empath over on the Hellions book that came out, you know, kind of closer towards the beginning of the House of X era. And yeah, they just kind of let him go and they just didn't do anything with it. Here we see he's back, he's on his bullshit, he seems to be embracing his powers in ways that almost seem kind of antithetical to the character growth he was developing in Hellions. But, you know, I would imagine losing your home would do that to you. So I'm gonna let that slide. As far as what's going on with the KRAKOAN, FKA Hellion, I don't really know exactly where his story is going. I'm figuring we're gonna get some more information that's gonna kind of tell us how he got to this point, because Hellion didn't really feature very much in the KRAKOAN era. Honestly, I don't even recollect seeing him in the KRAKOAN era, unless it was like some, oh hey, he's in the background somewhere, not really doing anything. But he might have shown up in an Infinity comic or whatever, one of the X-Men Unlimited comics. Once again, like I said, I don't read those very often, so maybe that's where he was. But the point is, I feel like there's going to be some development to explain why he is where he's at right now, but I'm here for it. I actually think it's kind of cool. I have a lot of feelings about what they're doing with 3K and more specifically Hellion, and I don't really know how to express it other than the fact that I feel this is kind of giving me shades of the, I guess, like the Star Wars sequel trilogy. There are a lot of Star Wars fans that felt some type of way when they realized that Kylo Ren was meant to be a commentary about crusty Star Wars fans. I kind of slick wonder if 3K, and by proxy even this group here, if they're not kind of something along the same lines. If it was, I would laugh my ass off, because yeah, y'all know, I think I've made it pretty clear how I feel about crusty X-Men fans. X-Men fans who they're still, you know, holding on to that last bastion of of Krakoa. They're like, no, we're not gonna let it die. It's still real to me, damn it. Like, no, we gotta hold on to it, because, you know, one day Marvel's gonna listen and they're gonna bring it back. And it's like, man, look, you can wish with one hand, shit in the other, and we'll see which one's gonna fill up first. Getting back to the Cuckoos though, I actually wonder if the Cuckoos being a part of this, I wonder if this is them just playing along, or if Empath is affecting them in some way. Because something that came up during the Hellion series was that Empath was considered problematic because he was constantly using his powers on other people and getting them to do things that were either problematic or hurtful to either themselves or other mutants on the island. I wonder if what he's doing is affecting the Cuckoos as well, because we see at the very end of this that the piano player, who is, it seems like he's playing until his hands are bleeding. I'm not really sure what that's, there's some artistic license going on here. Also see the Cuckoos have the same or similar kind of psionic effect around their head. I don't know if this is Empath doing or they're doing or whatever is going on here, but it wouldn't shock me if Empath was exerting his will over the Cuckoos, and maybe even to a lesser extent the KRAKOAN, though I don't know if that's actually going to be the case. We also got the bonus page, which apparently this is starting to become more of a thing, like not just something that's been hinted at that'll be a thing for the #1 issues. It's, I don't know how true this is. I've seen a lot of discourse around it, but it's mostly people like not citing any actual sources. It's just people just talking. And while I'm not as familiar with what's going on here, I think the character in question, I'm just going to refer to them as Mr. Friend, because that's what they're referred to in the comic. I don't know who this is. The name doesn't ring a bell. I'm going to go on a limb and say it's a new character, someone who seems to have some mind control powers. I am happy to see that Fauna is still a thing, a character who has been around since House of X #1. And I was actually quite pleased to see. I was actually worried this was a character who was going to get lost to, you know, the passage of time and the fall of Krakoa. But either way, I like the fact that she's present, but it seems like, yes, there are going to be more villains running around than a lot of people might have expected. And at the very beginning of this issue, yes, I saw Empath at the very beginning and I was like, oh wow, Empath. I wonder if he's going to play a bigger part in this. Also, I'm pretty sure this is a hint, just this picture right here, this is a hint that Empath might be using his powers to manipulate people on a grander scale. This could potentially be setting up Empath to be a much more powerful mutant than what we might be used to. It's iffy right now, but once again, Empath's abilities are something that are largely underexplored explored. So the idea of him being able to manipulate people on a massive level would not be out of the spectrum of possibility. It's even possible he is manipulating the very people we've talked about earlier in this issue who are spreading anti-mutant sentiment. It's very possible he's doing this for one reason or another, if for no other reason than to have fun or advance his cause. We know that Empath is a confirmed sociopath, so yeah. Do with that information what you will. There's other characters that are hinted and teased at across this. I think for the briefest of moments, I'm not sure if it's Caliban, but it sounds like there's gonna be some really cool stuff going on. And while I think as it stands right now, I'm gonna say it's, for me personally, right now, NYX might be my favorite book of the three that have come out so far. It's not to say, like, and I wanna make sure I'm clear on this, because I know everybody has this kind of opinion where like, oh, if you think something's the best, that means everything else is trash. No, I just mean of the three things, I like all of them, but this is the one I like the most, so do with that information what you will. You guessed it, obligatory channel outro time. If you're not subscribed to the channel, consider doing so. Clicking that subscribe button and tapping that notification bell ensures that you get more videos just like this one, and you don't miss any of my other content that I drop throughout the week, plus my live streams every Thursday and Saturday. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure you click that like button, keep it plus ultra, and sound off in the comments.